Impact decided to introduce a new title. And it got leaked in quotations to Mike Johnson earlier in the day. Clearly, that was not a story that was broken. That was a story that was fed to him, and good for him for having those connections. So
Yeah.
he wrote about it earlier in the day. It said that tonight they're going to be introducing a new title that's going to be based around their Impact Plus network. And I was thinking, cool, right? Like maybe it's an Impact Plus title was what I was thinking. Something to that effect, right? And they announce it, and it is the Impact Digital Media Championship.
Before we get into this, I'd like to also thank Mike Johnson for his service, because thanks to him, we finally rid this promotion of Vince Russo.
Yes,
So
absolutely. God
we all,
bless you. God bless
yes,
you, Mike.
we all owe you, Mike. Thank you. So, anyways, okay, I have complicated thoughts on this. It's going to be defended where?
Okay, so what I will do is I will actually pull up. So our friend Skylar Russell, who
Yes.
actually is now a contributor to Fight Game Media. He actually did a quick story for the Wrestling Observer. So he works for our buddies over at the Observer. And it said the newest, so Impact will add a brand new title to its ranks later this month, the Digital Media Championship. The newest Impact title was revealed on Thursday's episode. The first champion will be crowned in a single elimination tournament that will come to a conclusion in a 6-way match, of course, fucking Impact. At Bound for Glory. It'll be mainly featured and defended on the promotion's social media outlets, as well as their Impact Plus streaming service. He didn't say this, but it's also their Ultimate Insider YouTube. Oh, he says it later. Their Ultimate Insider YouTube channel. So that's where you're mostly going to be seeing the matches, is on Impact Plus and the YouTube Insider. I think they might have occasional matches on YouTube and Twitter, but those two pay services is where you're likely to see most of the matches. So it's going to be outside of the context of the regular show. And then I think for all of the Impact Plus specials that you get every month, it'll be defended on there. And then I'm sure it'll be defended on each pay-per-view. So, well, I'm not so sure about each pay-per-view because as I've looked more into this, the title, the first two matches that they've announced for the tournament, and this is what made me think, because my first reaction was like, this is stupid, right? Because not only is it the name not very good, Digital Media Championship, because nobody talks like that, right? No fans talk like that. If they would have said an Access Championship, fine. If they would have said Fight Network Championship, great, right? Impact Plus title, cool. If they'd have said YouTube title, they might have had to pay Google a lot of money to be able to use that gimmick. But so they call it a Digital Media Championship, and I was just like, that's just a lame sounding name. Nothing that doesn't excite me at all, right? And on the promo video, they showed men and women at the same time, and it's clear that they are going to make this an intergender thing. Now, I said earlier on Twitter that it was an intergender championship. It's not technically an intergender championship because that implies that all matches will be contested under intergender rules. And that's not what this is. It's just anybody can vie for the title at any time, kind of like the DDT Iron Man Championship, right? Or the 24/7 title on WWE, except for this is going to be predominantly regular matches just outside of the context of the show on their streaming services. And the first two matches that were announced for the tournament, they're going to have 2 matches a week up until Bound for Glory, where the first match is John Skyler versus Zicky Dice and Crazy Steve versus Hernandez. So what that tells me is this is not a big fucking deal. Nobody's actually going to be watching these matches. they might actually see it at the Bound for Glory, but this is not going to be that big of a deal. Only the hardest of the hardcore Impact fans are going to check this stuff out. So I in hindsight was a bit too hard on this title because it's not going to be on the show every week, and I am not going to watch the matches outside of the show. I'm just not going to, like, on Tuesday afternoon pull up Zicky Dice versus John Skyler. Not happening.
I have complicated thoughts on this. I recently wrote a story for our site. When a couple weeks ago they announced that AEW is creating a new title belt. We're still speculating on what it is. Should be rumors, the TBS women's title, whatever. And I wrote a thing on what it could be. And one of the things that I in this pure speculation on my part, because I got to write articles. One of the things I speculated on was an AEW Dark title, because they have that presence on YouTube. They have shows that live on YouTube. And I thought, you know what? There's so many guys doing their own thing. maybe it makes sense to do a title that's exclusive to that show. That apparently they haven't done that. If this is what Impact is doing, I don't hate that idea.
No.
I really don't. What I really hate is the name, because it sounds so corporate-y.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It sounds so sanitized. It's like, it's, man, from a company whose DNA is lined in tits and ass, like to have a title that's what TNA stands for, by the way, for people who might not realize, who think I'm being crude, that literally is what that means. To come out with this, it's like, wow, we really have come a long way, haven't we? But it just sounds so bland. Like you said, an Impact Plus championship. That's a way better sounding title. Impact Plus title. You know, I do find this interesting that when Cardona brings back his internet championship title, all of a sudden this becomes a thing. That's a little weird to me. And let's talk about the belt.
Yes. It looks eerily similar to another major championship out there.
Yes, it looks spookily similar to the AEW world title.
Yeah. It's the same belt, except for they changed the name on it.
So I'm a big Noah guy. Or I was last year. Last year Noah was awesome. This year it's like Shady Pines for pro wrestling in Japan.
Yeah.
It's old dudes having old dude matches. But anyway, their world title, the Global Honor Crown title belt, looks exactly like, not exactly, close enough to the older, the cool looking IWGP title, not this monstrosity that Shingo's carrying around. So it's kind of reminding me of that. It's like when Noah wanted to get relevant, they said, hey, let's just rip off the IWGP title. And it felt like Impact's like, this got a meaningless title. Let's make it look exactly like the AEW title. It's so, this is going to get a lot of discourse over the weekend, but at the same time, you're right. It's like, if it's never on the show, right? And it's never on the pay-per-view, this is like Schrodinger's title. Is it really a title? Like, does it exist?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what you were saying with the AEW Dark title. This is kind of what they're doing, right? But it's not. There's not actually a TV show built around it.
That's the problem, though.
They're just right. They're just going to show the matches. So, and maybe some of the stuff will play out on before the Impact. Maybe, right?
I mean, that would be smart. I mean, honestly, a BTI title sounds better, although it does sound like the BTE title. So that's, I guess, that was interesting. But I mean, like, the digital media title, it sounds like some bullshit Shane McMahon would have said in a boardroom meeting 10 years ago.
Yeah. The only other person I've ever heard say digital media and constantly like that was like the buzzword is if you listen to Scott D'Amore when he's talking to the media, he's constantly bragging about Impact's digital media presence, right? And increasing their digital media footprint. So I get why they're trying to do that. So that has been one of their buzzwords that they're using. I just don't see digital media championship, the digital media champion, as being marketable.
That's a terrible name.
That's a terrible
name.
Look, Cardona's got the internet championship, right? People say internet. They don't they don't say digital media. Right.
No human being, like one that's too many syllables, digital media. It's like, and it's granted sort of intercontinental, but that's a weird sounding thing too. And we've been doing it for 40 years. So it's used to it. But like the digital media champion, it sounds like some WWE bullshit is what it sounds like. It really, the more I say it and think about it, it really does. But even they know better than not to do that. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't hate this idea in theory. I really don't. I want to see how it's executed, but I don't like the belt. I don't like the name. Like, and I mean, if it's just like, I don't want to say a job guy title because that's not fair. I mean,
I would say that that's fairly fair. John Skyler loses more than he wins. And Zicky, this is going to be his first match in the company. So, but we've seen where he's slotted. He's a lackey for Myers, right?
He's a lackey who doesn't cut promos, who's really good at cutting promos.
Yeah, they're not letting him do the thing that he's the best at, which is cutting promos. And then you got Hernandez, who loses every time he's out there.
He's Hernandez.
Okay, Crazy Steve, kind of more of a mid-level pushed guy. Okay, Decay's big. Decay's big in the Impact bubble, right? They're super over, but he's like they were on a roll and then they lost to the Good Brothers and they got pushed down the card, but they win more than they lose, I would say. Decay.
They do. I don't know if they're pushed though. I wouldn't there's push. I guess there's pushes any mid card thing. I mean, like when's the last time Decay was on the show? I literally can't remember off the top of my head.
Well,
You
I
would
mean,
say last week, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I
yeah,
forgot.
it was last week, but and then
It was last week.
Toros had that 5-way at the
Taurus,
yeah, the pay-per-view.
Taurus.
But and then of course Havoc and Rosemary are the tag team champions. So
Oh yeah, they're Decay too. I forgot
yeah,
about that. Fair. I kept
yeah.
thinking of Taurus and Steve. Yeah, and I like Crazy Steve, especially legally blind professional wrestler. Very cool story. I don't know. I feel like he's the fourth wheel of Decay right now, and it just define. I mean, like they are defining the title down, so I guess we just let them define it down and
Yeah,
just live with it. I guess
it got kind of built up a little bit. It was a major letdown in my opinion. Although man, oh man, were people defending that fucking title to me.
well,
They have like I went a little hard, and which I do. That's kind of
it's
yeah.
why I appreciate. That's like the
Yeah.
basis of our relationship, and it
Right.
entertains me every time you do.
Yeah, I go a little stiff, and then eventually I end up pulling back because like my initial reaction to every situation is to be an asshole, right?
You
It
poke the
always
bear.
is. Yeah,
Mhm.
it always is. And then people talk to me, and then I chill, right? And like I told people, it's like, look, yeah, I said what I said, but guess what? If it turns out that it rules, guess who's going to admit that he was wrong? Me. I always do. Impact's proved me wrong 1,000 times, right? I've always thought something's going to suck and it turns out to be fine. That's how it goes. But it's not going to stop me from stating my opinion about something off my initial reaction. That's just how this stuff works. I don't know how to stop, take a deep breath, and let the whole thing play out, which I think could be a recurring segment on or an actual podcast we've talked about earlier this week. Let it play out podcast. So I just don't have that in me. I just react to what I see in the moment, and that's I think that's why it partially works what I do. So
Well, that's Twitter. That's like the
yeah.
nature of the beast on that. Like Twitter's always
Right.
Twitter is just like unfiltered, id. Like it's just like
Yeah.
this is what's on my mind at the moment. And that gets a lot of people guilty as charged
Mhm.
in trouble. Like and
Oh yeah,
it's fine.
man. So
I don't want to pick on the Impact fans, but I mean there's a lot of people that were like, I want my wife as loyal to me as some of these fans are to this company. Let's just
Yeah.
it's kind of it's impressive or it's crazy. I'm not sure
Right.
where.
I think Scott Demore could jerk off a goat in the middle of the ring, and some of these people be like, that's art. You know what I mean? I
don't
think
know.
that could happen.
I
So
think we almost saw that tonight with the bunkhouse.
yeah, we did. We got kind of close. Yeah.